The laughter hit me like a slap. Not because it was cruel, though it was. Not because it was public, though it was that too. It was the ease of it. The way she said it, like she'd been waiting all evening for the right moment, and when it came, she didn't hesitate, didn't flinch, just smiled at the table full of people we called friends, and let the words fall like they weighed nothing. At least my ex was more generous in the gift department. Thomas is more of a practical man. The table erupted. I watched the laughter travel around the room. I watched my business partner nearly spit out his wine. I watched my wife of 12 years, raise her glass with a grin, enjoying every second of it. I set down my napkin very slowly, looked at her, said one line, and walked out. She thought I overreacted. Her father thought differently. So did the bank. So did the judge. By the time she realized what she'd lost, I was already gone. My name is Daniel Reeves. I'm 50 years old. And for the last 22 years, I have built an industrial equipment supply company from a rented warehouse with one truck and a phone that barely got reception. Today, Reeves Industrial, has contracts with half the manufacturing plants across 3 states. My hands used to do the heavy lifting. Now they sign the contracts. But that night at Carmine's, those same hands gripped a wine glass so hard I thought it might shatter. Sandra sat across from me in that red dress I used to love, hair perfect, smile bright, playing the room like she always did. I met her 15 years ago at her father's charity gala. She was 24, just out of college. Electric with ambition she never quite turned into action. I was 35, divorced, slowly rebuilding after my first marriage had collapsed under the weight of my obsession with work. Sandra felt like a second chance. Her son, Owen, was barely 3 years old when we met. She didn't know who his father was. Some careless chapter in her early 20s, she said. I didn't judge. The moment I met that kid, something in me settled. Within a few months, I was the one teaching him to tie his shoes, reading him to sleep, showing up to every school event, like I'd been doing it his whole life. He became my son in every way that mattered. But that night at Carmine's, everything shifted. Warren Holt, one of my largest clients and someone I'd foolishly called a friend, had been drinking too much. He made some comment about anniversary gifts, and Sandra laughed. That musical sound I used to love, and without a moment's hesitation said it. At least my ex was more generous in the gift department. Thomas is more of a practical man. The table erupted. Warren nearly choked. His wife gasped and then giggled. Even the accountant 2 seats down slapped the table. Sandra raised her glass, grinning at me. Oh, come on, don't look so serious. You know I'm joking. But I wasn't being serious. I was calculating. I set my napkin on the table slowly, deliberately. Looked at her. Not with anger, not with hurt, just looked. Then I said quietly enough that only she could hear, "Thanks for the honesty, Sandra." The laughter didn't stop dramatically. It just faded like someone turned a dial. People found their plates suddenly fascinating. Warren reached for the wine bottle. Sandra's smile faltered. "Babe, it's a joke. You're not actually upset, are you?" I stood up, buttoned my jacket, and smiled at no one in particular. "Excuse me," I said, and walked out. No storming, no slammed doors, just left. Behind me, I heard Sandra's voice, bright and slightly frantic, trying to restart the party. "He's such a good sport, really." But I wasn't a good sport anymore. I was done being the safe choice, the practical man, the one who picked up every bill and absorbed every joke with a patient smile. I walked to my truck in the parking lot, got in, and didn't start the engine. Just sat there in the dark, listening to my own breathing, feeling something inside me shift from hurt to something colder, something purposeful. That joke cost her more than she ever imagined, and I was about to show her exactly how much. I didn't go home that night. Instead, I drove to the original warehouse, the one where all of this started 22 years ago. Past midnight, but I still had keys to every lock in the building. Old habits. I walked through the dark loading bay, past rows of industrial generators and hydraulic presses, climbed the metal stairs to my old office. The new one downtown had marble floors and a view of the river. This one had concrete walls and memory. I sat in the chair I bought at a garage sale in 1999, pulled out my phone and stared at the 14 missed calls from Sandra. 14. Each one probably started with tears and ended with excuses. I didn't listen to a single voicemail. Instead, I opened my email and started scrolling through messages I'd been ignoring. Business contracts, client requests, correspondence, and then buried 3 weeks back, one that made the blood drain from my face. Subject line: Dad, I need to tell you something. It was from Owen. My hand froze. Owen never called me Dad in writing, always said it out loud, easy, casual, like breathing, but never typed it. I clicked. Dad, I don't know how to say this. A few months ago, I saw something on Mom's phone. She left it open on the kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping, I swear, but I saw messages from a guy named Marcus. They weren't just friends. I took screenshots because I didn't know what else to do. I've been carrying this for months and it's killing me. I kept trying to tell you in person and I kept losing my nerve. I'm sorry. You deserve to know. I'm on your side, always. Owen. 3 attachments, all screenshots. I opened the first one, a text thread between Sandra and someone saved simply as M in her contacts. Messages dated 4 months ago, flirtatious at first, then explicit. Hotel names. Times I'd be out of town. The second was a photo. Sandra and a man I didn't recognize, younger, maybe mid-30s, gym-built, confident the way people are when they've never faced real consequences. His arm was around her shoulder, her head tilted toward him like she belonged there. The third was a voice message transcription. Sandra's words: I know I should feel guilty, but I don't. Thomas is a good man, but he's boring. You make me feel alive again. I sat there for a long time, phone in hand, staring at the word. Boring. I wasn't angry. I was numb. And then, slowly, something else crept in. Clarity. Owen had known for months. That 16-year-old boy, the kid I'd been raising since he was 3, had carried this weight alone, trying to protect me while his mother kept lying. While I worked myself to the bone to give her everything she wanted. I typed a response. Owen, thank you for trusting me. You did the right thing. Don't worry about your mom. I'll handle it. And son, you didn't betray anyone. You protected what matters. I'm proud of you. Come to the warehouse if you need somewhere to be tonight. Either way, you're not in trouble. You never were. Dad. My phone buzzed 20 minutes later. Owen's reply. I'm coming to the warehouse. I don't want to be there when she gets home. 20 minutes after that, headlights swept across the parking lot. Owen's beat-up Civic pulled in and the kid walked through the bay door carrying a backpack, looking like he'd been holding his breath for months. I met him halfway. He didn't say anything. Just dropped the bag and stood there, shoulders tight, eyes red. Come here, I said. He stepped forward and I pulled him into a hug. He was taller than me now, this kid, but he still felt like the 3-year-old who used to fall asleep on my shoulder watching baseball games. "You're not alone in this," I told him quietly. "We're going to be fine. Both of us." He nodded against my shoulder. And for the first time in what felt like a very long time, I felt something beyond anger. I felt purpose. We stayed at the warehouse through the night. Owen had thought ahead in a way that still impresses me when I think about it. He'd backed everything up to a cloud drive, made copies, printed the worst messages, and tucked them in a folder labeled math homework. I slid a mug of coffee across the table to him. "When did you get this smart?" He shrugged. "I watch a lot of crime documentaries, and I knew if I was going to do this, I had to do it right." "You shouldn't have had to do any of this." "She's my mom," Owen said quietly, staring into his mug. "But you're my dad, and she hurt you. That makes it my problem, too." I didn't have an answer for that, so I just nodded. We spent the next 3 hours going through everything. The messages, the hotel receipts, the photos. Owen had even tracked the man down on social media. Marcus Poole, 37, personal trainer at an upscale gym. Divorced, no kids. Profile full of shirtless photos and quotes about authenticity. "She met him 6 months ago," Owen said, scrolling with 2 fingers, expression flat. "Started going to the gym every morning before work. Said she wanted to get healthy." He paused. "She started wearing makeup to the gym instead of after, coming home later and later. Then one day I checked the location app we share on our phones." He looked up at me. "She wasn't at the gym." I pulled up the prenuptial agreement on my laptop. Sandra and I had signed it 11 years ago when we married. Her father, Arthur, had insisted. At the time, I thought it was overkill. Now I wanted to send the man a thank you card. Clause 12D. In the event of documented infidelity or public humiliation of either party, the injured party may activate asset protection protocols, including separation of joint accounts and revocation of shared property access. I made a call at 2 a.m. Thomas Aldridge, my attorney, was 68 and mostly retired, but he still kept a handful of private clients. I was one of them. He picked up on the 3rd ring. "Thomas," he said, voice rough with sleep, "this better be important. It's not good, but I need you tomorrow morning. Early?" A pause. "She cheated." It wasn't a question. "Yeah." "You have proof?" "More than enough." 7 a.m. Bring everything." He hung up. Owen looked at me across the table. "What happens now?" "Now," I said, closing the laptop, "we execute. Your mother thinks she's been playing chess. She doesn't know I've had this move ready for 11 years. "What about me?" Owen asked. His voice was steady, but I could hear the weight underneath it. I met his eyes. "You're my son. That doesn't change. Ever. I don't care what biology says or what any court decides. You're mine. And when this is over, you get to choose where you want to be. No pressure, no guilt. Just choice." His jaw tightened. He nodded once, then again. "I choose you." "Then we're good. Get some sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a long day." He headed to the break room. At the door, he stopped. "Dad?" "Yeah. Thanks for not falling apart." I smiled, though it didn't quite reach my eyes. "I'm saving that for later. Right now I've got work to do." I spent the rest of the night going through everything. Bank accounts, property deeds, business documents. Everything Sandra thought we shared. By sunrise, I had transferred half our joint savings into a separate account. I had activated the prenup clause through Thomas, and I'd started the paperwork to change the locks on the house. She'd made me a punchline. She was about to learn what that punchline cost. Sandra came home at 3 a.m. I watched her on the security cameras I'd installed 6 months ago. Another thing she didn't know about. She stumbled in, still wearing the red dress, heels in hand. Checked the living room, the kitchen. Went upstairs to find an empty bedroom. I watched her pull out her phone and dial my number. It rang on the desk in front of me. I let it go to voicemail. She called 6 more times in 10 minutes. Then she called Owen. I texted him immediately. Don't answer. Let her think. His reply came fast. Already not. At 7 a.m., I walked into Thomas Aldridge's office. He was already there, coffee in hand, reading glasses on. You look terrible, he said. I feel worse. Good. Angry clients make reckless decisions. You look calculated. He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Show me what you got. I laid everything out. The screenshots Owen had sent, the hotel receipts, the photos, the text transcriptions. Thomas flipped through them without expression. Finally, he set them down. This is airtight. He looked at me. What do you want? Divorce. But first, I want to activate the prenup. Lock her out financially. Then I want to file for custody of Owen. He's not your biological son. I've been his father for 14 years. That counts. Thomas nodded slowly. It does. And given that she's the one who committed adultery and that Owen is 16 and can express his own preference, you've got a strong case. He paused. But Thomas, it's going to get ugly. Let it. He smiled, thin, sharp. I'll have the papers filed by noon. She'll be served by end of business today. I stood up. Thomas, he said, looking at me over his glasses, I've known you 20 years. You're not a vindictive man, but you're about to burn her world to the ground. A pause. You sure about this? I thought about the laughter at the table, the photos, the word boring printed on a screen, the way she'd looked at me for 12 years like I was a reliable appliance. Useful, unremarkable, replaceable. I'm sure, he nodded. Then let's get to work. By noon, the joint account was frozen. By 2, the house locks were changed. By 4, a courier delivered the papers to Sandra at her office. Owen and I had lunch at a diner across town. He picked at his fries, quiet. She's going to call you, I said. I know. You don't have to answer. He looked up. What if she cries? Then she cries. That doesn't change what she did. He nodded, but I could see the conflict working behind his eyes. She was still his mother. That didn't just disappear, no matter how much she'd destroyed. Owen, I said quietly. Whatever you decide, I'm not going to be angry. If you want to talk to her, talk to her. This is between her and me. You don't have to choose sides. I already did, he said. I chose you the day I sent that email. My phone buzzed. A text from Thomas. She's called my office 11 times in the last hour, threatened to sue. I told her to get her own attorney. I showed Owen the message. He almost smiled. Think she's figured it out yet? That I'm not the safe, boring guy she married? I said. Yeah. I think she's starting to get the picture. Arthur didn't call me. He showed up. 3 days after Sandra was served, his black Jaguar pulled into the warehouse parking lot at 7 a.m. I watched him from the office window as he climbed out, straightened his jacket, and walked toward the entrance like a man who'd made a difficult decision and wasn't backing down from it. Owen was eating breakfast in the break room. He looked up at the sound of footsteps. That's Grandpa Arthur. I know. You think he's here to yell at you? Probably. But when Arthur Lawson walked through the door, he wasn't angry. He looked tired, old in a way I'd never seen before. He was 69, a man built by decades in boardrooms and charity galas, accustomed to controlling every room he entered. But right now he looked like someone had knocked the ground out from under him. "Thomas," he said. "Arthur." He looked at Owen. "Morning, son." "Morning, Grandpa." Arthur turned back to me. "Can we talk privately?" I nodded toward my office. Owen stayed at the table, watching us both with careful eyes. Inside, Arthur sat down heavily. Didn't speak for a moment, just stared at the floor, hands clasped in his lap. "She came to me yesterday," he finally said, crying. "Told me you'd locked her out of the house, frozen the accounts, taken Owen from her, said you were being vindictive over a joke." He looked up, eyes sharp. "I've known you 15 years, Thomas. Vindictive isn't in your character. So no, I didn't believe her." He reached into his jacket and set an envelope on my desk. "I hired my own investigator, had him follow her for the past week." I opened the envelope. More photos. Sandra and Marcus Poole. Different hotels, different restaurants. Timestamps showing she'd been meeting him almost daily since I'd moved out. She hadn't even slowed down. "I'm sorry you had to see this," I said. "Don't be, I needed to know." Arthur leaned back, looking exhausted. "When Sandra was young, her mother died. She was 12. I didn't know how to handle it, so I gave her everything else. Never made her work for anything, never let her face a real consequence." He paused. I thought I was being a good father. "Arthur, let me finish." He held up a hand. "I'm not excusing what she did, I'm explaining it. She believes the world exists to accommodate her. That when it doesn't, she simply finds someone who will. That's my fault, not yours." I was quiet for a moment. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you're doing the right thing." He looked toward the door, toward Owen sitting in the break room. "That boy deserves better. And so do you." He stood up. "I'm changing my will. Sandra won't inherit anything. Everything goes to Owen, held in trust with you as executor. I'll have my attorney draw up the papers this week. You don't have to." "Yes, I do, because if I leave it to her, it'll be gone in 3 years. But Owen..." He looked at me, and for the first time I saw something like pride in his face. "Owen has your sense, your work ethic. He'll do something with it." Arthur walked to the door, then stopped with his hand on the frame. "Thomas, I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. You're a good man. You deserved better than what she gave you." He left without another word. No dramatics. Just a father accepting the truth about his daughter and choosing to act with integrity anyway. Owen appeared in the doorway a moment later. "What did he say?" "He's on our side." Owen's shoulders dropped with relief. Then the emotion moved through his face, quiet, complicated. He'd just lost his mother in every way that mattered. He knew it was the right choice. It still hurt. "Come here," I said. He crossed the room and I put an arm around his shoulders. He was almost a man now, but we all need this sometimes. "We're going to be okay," I said, "both of us." "I know," he said, "because you don't quit." No, I thought I don't. 2 weeks after the papers were served, Thomas called with news I wasn't expecting. "Thomas, we've got a development. I was going through the financial records for the proceedings. Standard audit, making sure everything's accounted for. I found some irregularities." I sat up straighter. "What kind of irregularities?" "The college fund you set up for Owen. The one with $140,000 in it." He paused. "It's at $73,000 now." The room went cold. What? 67,000 withdrawn over the last 18 months. Multiple transactions, all authorized by Sandra. She had joint access to the account. Where did it go? Based on withdrawal dates, cross-referenced with her credit card statements, hotels, restaurants, a $5,000 charge at a jewelry boutique the same week she pulled out $8,000 from Owen's fund. I stood up, pacing. She stole from her own son. Technically, it was a joint account, so it's not theft in the legal sense. But morally, yes. And in terms of your custody case, it shows financial irresponsibility, parental neglect, misuse of funds intended for a minor. A judge is going to have a very strong reaction to this. Document everything, every dollar. Already on it. I hung up and stood there staring at the wall, feeling something that went past anger into something almost cold. Owen had been working part-time jobs since he was 14, saving for college like it was a sacred goal, talking about engineering programs, cutting out pictures of university campuses. And Sandra had been quietly draining his future to pay for hotel rooms with a man 12 years younger than her. I walked down to the warehouse floor. Owen was helping one of my guys load equipment onto a pallet. He saw my face and jogged over. "Dad, you okay? You look like someone just ran over your truck." I didn't sugarcoat it. "Your college fund. Your mother withdrew $67,000 over the last year and a half." His face went blank. "What? Hotels, restaurants, gifts for him? She spent your college money on her affair." Owen just stood there, processing. Then his jaw set and something dark moved through his eyes. Not explosive, just final. The kind of anger that doesn't make noise. "I worked for that money," he said quietly. "I saved half of every paycheck. 2 summers of lawn work and stocking shelves." "I know." "And she just took it." "Yeah." He turned away, hands in his pockets, shoulders tight. I let him have the silence for a minute. When he turned back, his eyes were dry but red at the corners. "I don't want to see her anymore," he said. "I've been going back and forth, thinking maybe I should, but I'm done. She can cry all she wants. I'm done." "You sure?" "She stole my future to pay for her fun." He looked at me steadily. "That's not a mother, that's a thief." I put a hand on his shoulder. "I'll rebuild the fund. Dollar for dollar, everything she took." "You don't have to." "Yes, I do. You earned that money. You deserve to have it." Owen nodded, then looked up at me. "What happens to her now?" "She answers for it in court, in front of a judge. And she explains why she thought it was okay to take from her own son." Owen nodded slowly. "Good," he said, and he meant it. The invitation arrived 6 weeks after I filed for divorce. Thick, cream-colored envelope. My name in gold script. Inside, an invitation to the Lawson Foundation Annual Gala. 25 years of work in industrial safety and education. Arthur's pride and joy. Every year he gathered the city's business community, raised money for scholarships, gave speeches about responsibility and legacy. I'd attended 11 times with Sandra on my arm. This year would be different. Owen walked in, saw me holding the envelope, raised an eyebrow. "You going?" "Thinking about it." "Mom will be there." "I know." "You sure you want to deal with that?" I set the invitation down. "Owen, I've spent the last month and a half moving in the shadows, transferring accounts, filing papers, avoiding confrontation. Maybe it's time I stopped disappearing." He nodded slowly. "Can I come?" Grandpa Arthur asked me to. Said it would mean a lot to him. He paused. And honestly, I don't want you going alone. I looked at this kid, almost a man now, who'd chosen me over his own mother, who'd carried a terrible secret for months to protect me, who was still standing straight despite everything. Then we'll go together, I said. The night of the gala, Owen wore a charcoal suit I'd bought that afternoon. He kept adjusting his tie in the truck mirror. You look good, I told him. I feel like I'm playing dress up. You're not. You're representing yourself, and you're doing it well. We handed the keys to the valet, walked through the massive doors of the Harborview Grand Hotel, and into the ballroom. Packed. Business owners, city officials, donors, everyone holding champagne and making the kind of small talk that keeps the world moving. And there, near the center of the room, was Sandra. Red dress again? Always red when she wanted to control the room. Hair perfect. Smile performing. She was laughing with a group of women I recognized from her social circle. She hadn't seen me yet. Arthur spotted us first and crossed the room. He shook my hand firmly, then pulled Owen into a long embrace. Glad you came, he said to me. Wouldn't miss it. She's been telling people you're unstable, that you've turned Owen against her. And what do people say? Arthur smiled thinly. They're polite to her face. But 3 separate people have already pulled me aside tonight and asked if you're okay. He paused. Word travels in circles like this. Owen and I moved through the room. I shook hands, made conversation, acted like a man who had nothing to prove, because I didn't. Every few minutes I'd catch someone glancing between me and Sandra, quietly assembling the picture. Then she saw me. Our eyes met across the room. Her smile froze. The champagne glass in her hand trembled slightly. I held her gaze, calm, steady, unhurried, until she turned back to her group. Dad, Owen murmured beside me. She looked scared. She should be. Dinner was served. Arthur took the podium, gave his speech, recognized donors, announced scholarship recipients, and then near the end he paused and looked up from his notes. Before we close tonight, I want to recognize someone who embodies everything this foundation stands for, someone who builds, who creates jobs, who takes care of people, not because he has to, but because it's who he is. Thomas Reeves, would you stand? I stood surprised. Thomas started this company with nothing but a rented warehouse and a refusal to quit. He now employs over 60 people across 3 states. He's been a quiet partner to this foundation for years, funding scholarships, never asking for recognition. Arthur looked at Owen. And he's been a father to my grandson Owen, who's here tonight, and who is growing into the kind of man that makes you proud to know him, because of Thomas's influence. Applause filled the room. I saw Sandra's face go white. Arthur's voice softened. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who choose to show up, who do the work, who stay present even when it's hard. Thomas Reeves has done that, and we're grateful. I sat down. Owen gripped my shoulder without a word. Around the room, people were watching me differently now. Not with pity or curiosity, with respect. Sandra left 10 minutes later without saying goodbye to anyone. I watched her heels clicking across the marble toward the exit. Owen watched her go. She didn't expect that. No, I said, she didn't. That was the point? That was the point. She caught us in the lobby on the way out. I'd been expecting it. Thomas? Her voice was sharp, controlled. She looked like someone working very hard to project composure. We need to talk. No, we don't. Yes, we do. You're turning everyone against me. My own father just humiliated me in front of 200 people. He recognized me for my work. That's not humiliation. You know what I mean. Her voice rose. You've taken Owen. You've locked me out of my own house. This is my house, I said evenly. The one I bought 8 years before we married. The one titled solely in my name. She faltered. We built a life there. You built lies there. I built a life. There's a difference. Owen stood beside me, silent. Sandra's expression shifted when she looked at him, softer, reaching. Owen, honey, can we talk? Just us? No, Owen said quietly. Please, I'm your mother. You stole my college money, Owen said. His voice was steady, not cruel, just final. You used it for hotel rooms, for him. While I was saving every paycheck I made, you were spending my future. He held her gaze. You don't get to play the mom card after that. Sandra's face went white. I was going to pay it back. You didn't even slow down after Dad left, Owen said. You just kept going. So no, Mom, we're not going to have a quiet talk where you cry and I forgive you, not this time. Her eyes filled. Real tears, maybe. But whether they were for Owen or for herself, I genuinely couldn't tell. She turned to me, voice breaking. You did this. You turned him against me. No, I said quietly. You did that yourself. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences. One mistake. It wasn't one mistake. It was months of lying. It was stealing from your son. It was humiliating me in front of our friends. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. You wanted everyone at that table to laugh at me, to see me as the boring, practical husband who couldn't measure up. So they laughed. She said nothing. But here's the thing, Sandra. Your ex might have given you bigger gifts, but I gave you a home, a family, a life built from nothing. And you threw it away for someone who will move on the moment you're inconvenient. I paused. You told everyone I was the practical one. You were right. I'm practical enough to know exactly what you cost me and practical enough to make sure it never happens again. I turned to leave. One more thing, I said, glancing back. You said at dinner that your ex was bigger, but at least I'm the one people respect. The words landed. Sandra stood frozen as Owen and I walked through the lobby doors into the cool night air. Outside, Owen was quiet for a long moment. That was brutal, Dad. She earned it. Yeah, he said. She did. We drove home in silence, not uncomfortable, just settled. The silence of two people who'd been through a battle and came out the other side standing. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Plain walls, fluorescent lights, wooden benches worn smooth by years of difficult truths. Sandra sat at the defendant's table with her attorney, a sharp woman in her 40s who looked like she'd heard every excuse imaginable and remained unimpressed by all of them. Owen sat beside me, jaw set, hands folded. Judge Marion Whitfield entered and we stood. She was in her 60s, silver hair pulled back tight, eyes that moved with the precision of someone who'd spent 30 years sorting truth from performance. Robert had warned me. She had zero patience for games. The hearing lasted 2 hours. Thomas presented everything methodically: the affair, the hotel receipts, the screenshots, Owen's testimony, the financial records showing $67,000 drained from Owen's college fund. Sandra's attorney tried to spin it. Your Honor, my client acknowledges difficulties in the marriage. However, the account in question was jointly held and my client had legal access. Legal access does not constitute ethical use. Judge Whitfield didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Continue. Thomas brought up the prenuptial agreement. Clause 12. D. Then he played audio from the anniversary dinner, recorded by a guest who'd quietly provided it. Sandra's voice making the joke, the laughter, my response, my exit. Judge Whitfield listened without expression. When both sides had finished, she set down her pen and looked at Owen. Mr. Reeves, you're 16 years old enough in this jurisdiction to weigh in on your preference. Where do you want to live? Owen stood. His voice didn't waver. With my dad, Thomas Reeves. He's been my father since I was 3 years old. He's the one who showed up. He's the one I trust. And your relationship with your mother? Owen was quiet for just a moment. She took my college money to fund her affair. I don't want to live with her. Judge Whitfield looked at him for a long moment. Sit down, son. She studied the documents in front of her. The courtroom was so quiet I could hear the fluorescent lights. Then she looked up. Mrs. Brooks, I'm sorry, Mrs. Reeves. I've reviewed the evidence presented today. The infidelity is documented and undisputed. The financial misappropriation of your son's education fund is documented and undisputed. The prenuptial agreement is valid and enforceable. She looked directly at Sandra. Full custody of Owen Reeves is granted to Thomas Reeves, with visitation rights to Mrs. Reeves at Owen's discretion, not yours. The property at Walton Ridge remains the sole property of Thomas Reeves, per the prenuptial agreement. Joint assets are to be divided 60-40 in favor of Mr. Reeves due to documented financial misconduct. Mrs. Reeves, you are ordered to repay the $67,000 withdrawn from Owen's education fund within 18 months, with interest. Sandra looked like the floor had dropped out from under her. Furthermore, Judge Whitfield continued, I'm ordering mandatory financial counseling and quarterly reports to this court regarding your repayment plan. This is not a request. This is an order. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Sandra whispered. The gavel came down. Outside the courthouse, Owen and I stood in the parking lot while the city moved around us. You okay? I asked. Yeah. He stared at the ground. I just didn't think it would feel this final. It is final, that's the point. He nodded slowly. What happens now? Now we go home. We rebuild your college fund. You finish high school. You apply to programs you're excited about. You live your life. I looked at him. And your mom? She figures out her own life. That's not your responsibility anymore. Owen looked at me. Thank you, Dad, for fighting for me. Always, I said. That's what fathers do. We drove home together. And for the first time in months, the weight that had been sitting on both of our shoulders was simply gone. 2 years can change everything. Owen graduated with honors, got into 3 universities, and chose mechanical engineering. His college fund was fully restored. I'd matched every dollar Sandra took and added another $50,000 for good measure. Sandra moved to a small apartment across town, took a job she never would have considered before, and paid back the education fund in monthly installments, without missing a single one, I'll give her that. Owen saw her occasionally. Coffee, sometimes lunch. Careful conversations. She apologized more than once. He listened. Some wounds heal, others just scar over, and you learn to live with the shape of them. Arthur passed away 8 months ago. Heart attack. Quick. Apparently painless. He left everything to Owen, held in trust with me as executor. At the funeral, Sandra stood in the back and didn't speak to anyone. Owen gave the eulogy, talked about integrity, about showing up, about becoming the man his grandfather believed he could be. I kept building, expanded the company, opened a third warehouse, hired 22 more people, stayed focused on what I'd always been good at, creating something from nothing, taking care of the people who depended on me. And then on a Wednesday in October, I met someone. Her name was Claire. Different woman, different life. 43, divorced. Ran her own machine fabrication shop on the east side of the city. She came into the warehouse looking for hydraulic components. We talked business for 90 minutes. Then she asked if I wanted coffee. I said yes. We took it slow. Dinners, long conversations, easy silences. She didn't want anything from me except honesty and company. That was exactly what I needed. Owen met her 3 months later. They got along immediately. She didn't try to fill any role she wasn't invited into, just existed alongside us, steady and genuine. On Owen's 19th birthday, the three of us had dinner at the house. Claire cooked, insisted on it. Owen talked about his engineering projects, about the internship he'd landed, about the future he was building. At the end of the night, as Claire was heading to her car, Owen pulled me aside in the kitchen. "I like her, Dad." "Yeah? She's good for you, real." "I think so too." He grabbed his keys. "You deserve to be happy, you know that, right?" "So do you," I said. He grinned. "I am, thanks to you." After he drove back to campus the next morning, I sat on the back porch with my coffee, watching the yard come alive in the early light. Sandra had made a joke. A stupid, careless joke meant to get a laugh. She thought it was harmless. Thought I'd take it like I always did. Swallow my pride, play the good sport, smile and pour another round. But that joke cost her everything. Her marriage, her son, her father's respect, her inheritance, her home. I'd lost a wife, gained clarity, and learned that sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is walk away quietly and let consequences catch up on their own. My phone buzzed. A text from Claire. "Coffee this morning?" My treat. I smiled and typed back. "Sounds perfect. Life moves forward. Some people move with it, others get left behind. I chose to move forward, and I haven't looked back once. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Have you ever stayed silent too long before finally walking away? How did you rebuild? Subscribe for more real stories about betrayal, strength, and starting over. Share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Thanks for watching.